Hello, everyone. Author Randy Weir, R. Weir. We're coming to you from Colorado today. We're having a big heat wave here, and tonight we're having a big thunderstorm. So we'll see if we hear some rumbles in the background while we're doing it. But I have a great guest that we're going to talk to here in a little bit. I was going to do a quick uh, promo of my new book, newest book, Murder by 100 Cuts. There's the cover for it. The Front Range Butcher going to trial. Big from one of my previous books, so it's a exciting book with a little bit of trial stuff in it. And here's a few reviews I just got recently, which added, which they've all been very good so far. So I hope everybody out there will look into it as well as looking into all my books, I hope. And then I wanted to quickly talk about Killer Nashville is they're doing their reader's favorite, I think it is, for their contest, and you can vote now on that. And I'm going to bring that up. And my guest has got a book in there as well, and I have a couple of books. I've had a few of my guests have books in there. The Killer Nashville Reader's Choice Award. So there's the link for it. I know several authors have posted out there, but go in and vote. You can vote for your 10 favorite books, all out there. And two of my books are on there as well. Lethal Blues, which is my fentanyl private eye Jarvis man going up against a fentanyl ring. And then Divine Retribution, which is the fourth and final book in the award-winning Divine Double series. So hope you'll check those out. And I will bring my guest forward here. This is Carmen Amato, and she's got a couple books in there too. Hi, Carmen. How are you doing?
Hey there.
From Tennessee, right?
From Tennessee, just outside of Nashville.
Yeah.
Where we are also having a heat wave and a thunderstorm. So.
Yeah, the weather is. We were 100 degrees yesterday. Not as humid though as you are in Tennessee, which when I go to Killer Nashville every year, I get a taste. I grew up in Iowa where, the humidity in the summer is bad. And I've gotten so used to Colorado. I'm like indoors, air conditioning. That's all I want.
Yeah. Every year at Killer Nashville, it can be a jam-packed 4 days. So I try and get out of the hotel really early and walk through the, I guess it's a little commercial district, but there's sidewalks all the way around just to get outside, get out of the air conditioning, and before it gets too humid. Because by lunchtime, if you want to walk outside, you're just like walking into a damp sponge.
Yeah, a couple of years. The first year I went, this will be my fourth year. First year I went, they had really bad flooding while we were there. The 1 year.
Oh, that's right.
People were killed.
We ended up walking through the kitchen to get to one of the rooms because the hotel had flooded.
Yeah, they had a water main break too. One other year, they had to close off, and we had those big fans playing while we were doing some of the panels, and you could not hear. Yes, really loud.
I think this will be my 6th. Yeah, I think this is my 6th Killer Nashville coming up, and I appreciate all the votes. For anyone who wants to vote, I did vote today, and I voted for both of yours.
Oh, well, thank you.
Lethal Blues is definitely on my TBR list because I like to see what other authors are doing when it comes to opioid crisis issues and kind of how they're fictionalizing it and what kind of urgency and understanding they're building around that topic. Because sometimes it just does not seem that the news is creating a sense of urgency for dealing with that. So I'm kind of hoping that, those of us who write these issues in fiction help with the understanding and maybe leading to some sort of solution eventually. So I'm looking forward to it.
It's really bad. I know it's really bad all over the country. And I did a Citizens Police Academy, and I talked to the DA of Adams County and an undercover drug officer, and they were like,
Wow.
"It's the only drug. It's the only thing we're working on right now. It's
Mhm.
all fentanyl now." And they have these big parties the kids are going to, and they burn the fentanyl and smell it, and they call them pass out parties. And I call it lethal blues because the pills are generally blue, not always. They have some colored ones that look like, Skittles to try to get kids
Mhm.
hooked and stuff. But yeah, it's horrible. And it's like it's the only thing right now drug wise. And then of course there'll be one after it probably that's just as bad or there's even worse. But they're just churning them out from Mexico and from some stuff's coming in from China too, and they can just make it really quick, cheap.
Yep. It's easier and cheaper to make than growing coca plants
Yeah,
and moving cocaine, and there's no season to it. You can make it all year round.
right.
And I write the series, the Detective Emilia Cruz series in Acapulco, and a lot of the Chinese precursor chemicals are coming into Acapulco and
Right.
being distributed to the drug labs. So that's an issue that I try and keep tabs on, shall we say.
Yeah, it's really bad. So, but anyway, thanks for being on with us today. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, whatever you want to talk about. Pat yourself on the back. All those things.
Okay. Well, I'll start with the basics and then I'll get to the pat on the back.
Okay.
Let's see. I am a retired CIA officer. I spent 30 years with the agency. I started as an analyst and moved into the technical realm uh, and stayed there for the 3/4 of my career. Spent considerable time overseas. Raised my 2 kids with my husband, also an agency employee. So the kids were overseas for school. One graduated from high school in Panama, the other graduated from high school in Nicaragua. So they are definitely, shall we say, very worldly kids. And they both came through the pandemic with flying colors. They were each living on their own. But I attributed that to the resilience they developed living overseas. Well, I always knew that I wanted to write as a second career and published my first book before I was retired. But in the past 6 years, I really was able to get some momentum going. So now there are 8 Detective Emilia Cruz novels and about a dozen shorts. And I also wrote a 4-book historical fiction thriller series based on the stories that my grandfather would tell. He was a deputy sheriff of Oneida County during Prohibition. So what you just saw on the screen were the spines of the Detective Emilia Cruz series. They're really bright. And those are the Galliano Club series books. So Murder at the Galliano Club won the Silver Falchion for Best Historical at Killer National last year. And the last book in the series, Revenge at the Galliano Club, is up for the same, I think, this year. So
They haven't announced yet. Yeah. Wait.
no, they haven't announced, but I was kind of feeling heartened when I saw that the book was on the People's Choice Award list, that you had just posted that link. So I'm hoping that that was a lot of family stories went into that series. During the pandemic, my mom was in New York and I was here in Tennessee, and she was in assisted living. And I would call her every night, and she was feeling very lonely. So I would ask her questions about growing up in upstate New York, and, try and pull little details from her. And she told me about going with her dad to Red's Meat Market or the Mohican Market, or her father had built a handball court in the backyard, etc. And so that helped her get through the pandemic to a certain extent. And I was able to weave those stories into that series. So unfortunately, she's now suffering from very severe dementia. So I felt very bad. She didn't know that the book won the award. And she, unfortunately, is not recognizing family anymore. So
yeah, I remember when you gave your acceptance speech, you had talked about her and you got very emotional about it. And that was a really nice moment, at least talking about that and for sharing with people.
I had a number of people come up to me afterwards and mention that. So I appreciate that. That was, I never thought I would write historical fiction. And that was a hard series to write. The first book was lots of fun. The prequel was lots of fun. I was creating characters and exciting things were happening, and I was weaving my grandfather's stories. And as I went through in the whole series, I mean, it's a one arc in 4 books kind of thing. It got progressively more complicated. And I really was working hard to make sense of what I had created. But
so it's mostly fictional, or it's a lot of truth with some fiction in it?
It is all fiction based on very authentic experiences of the Italian and Polish communities in upstate New York in the 1910s, 1920s. And I used my hometown of Rome, New York, to create the fictional city of Lido, New York. And I used my grandfather's career at the Revere Copper and Brass Rolling Mill to create the Lido Premium Copper and Brass Rolling Mill. So I also, especially in the prequel, really leaned on the Chicago 20s gangsters, Al Capone and such, to give our villain liftoff. Basically, he gets run out of town. And so I watched a lot of old video and did a lot of research. Had a private tour of the West End Brewery, maker of Utica Club beer, and the first brewery to ship beer after Prohibition. And then they were great. They had
legally ship it, right? There's a lot of illegal stuff going on, but yeah.
But they were terrific. You know, they opened up all the cases with all the old bottles from the 1920s. They were great. I had a private tour of the Stanley Theater, which the lobby is a scaled version of the Titanic's entry. I mean, it's a fabulous theater. You know, the local historical societies were all very welcoming. So put a lot of work into that series. Not that, you know, I'm sloughing off with Detective Emilia Cruz.
Well, and I interviewed a historical fiction novelist a few episodes back, and I was commenting about the difficulty of getting, you know, the set pieces correct and the clothing and the cars. And there's really a lot of reason. I mean, there's a lot of research for everything you do, but I would think going back that far, to be detailed correct, you really have to dig deep to get everything accurate. Because, you know, as an author, you want to be accurate as much as you can.
Yes. And I knew that, you know, somebody whose great hobby was train schedules of 1926 would be writing to say, you know, the train from Buffalo to Central New York really left at 4:55, not 4:57. So yeah, I was looking at everything in as great a detail as I could. So one of the biggest challenges, though, for that series is that's a multiple points of view, different characters, both male and female. And I had grown used to writing just from one point of view because Detective Emilia Cruz, the stories are just from her point of view. So that was like the biggest challenge for me. I didn't mind the research. That was fun. It was the different points of view, making them sound different, and then deciding the sequence of voices in each book. And who knows what, well, where is their little bit that advances the plot going to go? So sticky notes are our friend.
Yeah, I have my little notebook here that I make notes on and stuff as I'm going and as I'm writing, though I'm a very pantser type of writer. So I always start with the basic idea, but I still have to jot things down, especially when I'm going back and rereading stuff going, oh, yep, I got to get this part here's maybe a little out of whack or whatever. So yeah, so sticky notes, notebooks, whatever you can write your ideas down in.
The best invention ever are oversized sticky that are like 12 by 12 inches.
Oh, wow.
I'm staring at a big selection right now. You might
They're all over your walls, huh? Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, there's more. But, those are great because I guess it's a challenge for me to remember all the characters' names when they are minor characters, but they appear more than once. Right. So I have to have the character names up where I can refer to them quickly so that I have to go back and search the document. Right. I like having that. I like having just reminders, things to do, etc. for the different books. It's always something to be done.
Yeah, well, yeah. Again, you know, if you don't get it right, like you said before, someone will point it out after the book is released, going, "This character's name changed in the middle of the book. Did you know that?" Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Believe me, I want to avoid things like that.
Beta readers, editors, it'd be amazing. I have a lot of beta readers. Then I have my editor, and the editor at least does a couple of passes. Of course, I've read it, a million times. So when you read it, you read what's in your head, not always what's on the page. And I use the word read aloud now, which helps a lot too. I let it read to me and I catch more. But you'd be amazed how many things still kind of sneak through there. And I know for the more traditionally published authors, they usually catch everything. But even every now and then I'll find like a Lee Child, like I think that's a mistake. I think they missed that somehow. So
yes, I still remember I was reading a Janet Ivanovich, Stephanie Plum book, and they were referring to curtains as SHEARS, shears, instead of SHEERS. And I had this like immediate mental image of all these scissors across the wall. And I was like, well, that's just a typo. But I do find that if you just rely on the autocorrect for Microsoft Word or any of these programs, it will create problems for you. So I have closed down all of that sort of extra AI help that I don't need.
Well, yeah, I've had spell checker. It'll say, change it to this, and you change it to that. And then it goes, no, it needs to be back to the one it was before. Like lots. Is it the apostrophe S or just, a plural? And it'll say, no, it needs to be the apostrophe. Then it'll go back and say, no, it needs to be the other one. Sometimes I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
My editor will catch it. She'll catch it. She usually does it. Even she misses a thing or two every now and then, but usually not too bad. So I want to go back to a little bit about your personal, because I was reading on your website. that you got 2 rescue German Shepherds, which we love rescues. We've always done rescues. So were they police dogs, or were they anything like that in the past, or were they just basically someone didn't want them anymore?
Well, it's kind of hard to know. Our senior girl, Hazel, she came to us from the Middle Tennessee German Shepherd Rescue folks. And she, poor thing, was so sick. But we said we would take her. She was rail thin. She'd been living on the street, and then she got surrendered to a county shelter. We're not sure. It was like she had maybe been at a puppy mill and had too many puppies or something. So we had to take her and have her surgery. And so once she gained a little weight, we noticed that she was very disciplined in certain ways. She knew exactly to like put on a harness and walk perfectly by you. So she just reacted to certain things that made us wonder if maybe she had been in some sort of training as a guide dog, military service dog, a canine, something like that, because she really responded very well to that type of discipline. Not only that, and this is going to sound kind of funny, she loves watching television, and she especially loves watching anything military.
Wow.
So we had at some point something on television that was black and white, World War II military movement, troops, tanks, and she was just agog standing in front of the television for as long as it was on. So she's still like that. She's a big television watcher. And in fact, after dinner, she goes and she sits like right in front of the television and waits for somebody to turn it on. She gets a little too excited if there's an animal on the television, which made watching Yellowstone really challenging because it's full of horses, of course, and cows. She's now, getting up there, so she's not quite as excitable, say, when Limu the emu in those Liberty Mutual commercials come on. She was like in love with him. Our other dog, also a rescue, is about 115-pound, all-white German Shepherd.
Oh, wow.
And he practically glows in the dark. And he came to us. He was less than 2, maybe 15 months old, and already enormous. And that was a situation. He was found on the side of the road and went to a family initially from the rescue folks, and the family refused to pay the fee. And the rescue people took him back, and we met him. And my husband goes, "That's a really big dog." And I said, "Yeah, but he's so pretty, I think he'll be good." And he is got the best temperament of any German Shepherd we've ever had. So the two of them, they make a lot of glitter, shall we say. So I vacuum a lot, but they are key members of the family. Yeah.
Does the big one eat like a horse too? A lot of food?
He does.
Pounds?
He does. It's balanced because our senior girl, Hazel, is starting to taper off she's not eating as much as she used to.
Right.
But yeah, he's all muscle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we love our rescues. My daughter rescued a pit bull during COVID because the shelters, after COVID was over, the shelters, they were getting overrun with dogs. People were turning them in, and it was a pit bull that was like 25 pounds, and it was on the streets too. It was a rail, but she's the sweetest thing in the world. But you could tell that maybe they had worked with her to be a fighter and maybe she didn't want to do what she wanted. At first when we got her, if I had a belt in my hand, she would cower,
Oh,
and all that and everything. And she's like 45 pounds now, and she is strong for a little thing. I'm amazed. You can hardly hold her when you're walking her. She's so powerful, with the little legs just driving when she walks and stuff. But yeah, we love our rescues. So I thought that was great. And I always tell everybody, rescues are the best dogs. There's so many dogs in this world that need homes, and we don't need to go to the pet store to get dogs. There's
yeah.
plenty of good ones that are in shelters that you can get.
The first dog we ever had, a German Shepherd that we bought from a pet store in Mexico. And that dog was the smartest thing. She was, like a tiny handful when we first bought her. I think she was like maybe 7-8 weeks old.
Right.
And so that was the dog that the kids grew up with. She went to 4 different foreign countries with us. I mean, she was a trooper. So we knew we would always get German Shepherds. That breed just did really well for us. So.
Yeah. All right. So you're a retired CIA officer. So how many years were you in the CIA?
30 years.
Wow.
30 years. I entered on duty the day after Reagan's second inauguration, because inauguration day, it was a federal holiday. Right. So instead of having a 5-day intro, I had a 4-day intro compressed. And then I retired as DCIA Brennan was remaking the agency. There was a major reorganization. I was part of the reorganization team, and kind of my job got reorganized away, and there really wasn't anything else I wanted to do when I was already 5 years past retirement eligibility. So I decided that was it. And I'm really glad, because I had always, as I say, I had always said that writing would be a second career. I had already published 2 books, I think, by the time I had retired. So I was ready. And excited to, jump into the next thing.
So you obviously took some of that experience into some of your stories, I'm assuming. You have the Emilia Cruz book, but she's in Mexico, right?
She's in Acapulco, which is the Pacific coast of Mexico. And she is a homicide detective. Yeah. So it's a little bit different. I didn't want to immediately, retired CIA officer, write spy thriller. Everybody does that. Yeah. And I had published my first book. I had published while I was still working. And I don't think I showed you that picture.
Yeah, you actually did give me a copy of that one.
I did.
In Mexico City, yeah.
I love that cover.
Yeah.
And I really did pour a lot of my experiences in there. It's a Cinderella story. He's an attorney who also works for the Minister of Public Security. And she is a housemaid. And the housemaid, Mexico City is full of housemaids. It really does run on a very tiered social pyramid. And everybody has several maids. And most of these young women will work and live in the home, called a muchacha planta. So muchacha maid, planta, you're planted there basically. That's the way I always thought of it. And they go home like every other weekend, and maybe they get Wednesday nights off. And they go home to someplace outside the city, and they're supporting a family. They might even have kids living with a parent there, but they're the breadwinner in this situation. So I used that dynamic, which is very Mexican, because I wanted to write something that had a social message, frankly. I wanted to write about this case system I saw there that I really did not grasp before we got there and I saw it in action. But, if you're at the bottom of the pyramid in Mexico, you're not going up. You can go sideways, but you're not going to go to the top. It's just so many built-in impediments to that. So I wanted to write a story about that. First, I thought I'd write nonfiction, but who is going to read that from a total unknown? It's not like I'm some anthropologist or sociologist or teacher or anything. So I wanted to write that as a thriller. So star-crossed lovers, and he discovers that his boss, the Minister of Public Security, has struck a deal with a Sinaloa-type cartel leader to fund the presidential campaign of the man's lover, who is also the current First Lady of Mexico. And they're using drug money. So we have a border element. We have crime, we have corruption, and we have this star-crossed lover situation. And one of the experiences that I poured into that book happened to me, which was I had a check that I wanted to cash, written by a NATO ambassador. So the check was written on a Banamex, which is the big banking chain there. And I went to the big bank, and long line. And most of the people in line are working class, and people there wear uniforms. If you're a nanny, you wear a pink uniform. If you're a maid, you wear black, gray, or navy blue with an apron. If you're a tradesman, you wear a blue jumpsuit. So I'm the only person not wearing some sort of clearly identifiable worker outfit. I'm just standing there waiting. Big line, not moving fast. And this guy comes into the bank, and he is wearing a beautifully tailored pinstripe suit, really snazzy shoes. He is dressed very, very well. He is obviously not of the same social class as the rest of the people standing in line. Right. He walks in, looks at his watch, and cuts in so that he's now third from the front. And everybody, and like 10 people, including me, have to shuffle backwards so that this guy can cut into line. And nobody says anything except big mouth me, who goes something like, I just made a huffy noise. Well, everybody knew that this lady had made the huffy noise, including the tellers. So when I got to the teller and presented the check and my ID and, all, she runs the check through a little machine and invalidates it with red ink on both sides.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm like, well, what did you do? And she gives me the universal phrase, come back in 15 minutes, which really means get away from me, get out of my hair. Nothing is going to change in 15 minutes. We both know it, but it's a colloquial phrase, get out. And it was just, so I had to go back, and they had to write me another check. I mean, it was a mess. But that's the sort of attitude there that I found that I wanted to write about. And so in the book, our heroine, Luz de Maria, is also an artist, and she gets paid for a painting. They give her a check. This happens to her. She makes a huffy noise, and her check is invalidated, and she has no way to get back to the person who wrote her the check. So she's just out money that would have kept her family afloat for like 2-3 months. So That is one of the stories that
Yes.
came in.
So kind of, you kind of go on that. That's one of my questions. I always, things that you draw from actual events in your life or people that you've known. Obviously, you've already mentioned, your one series. It kind of goes back to the roots of some of your family and stuff. And obviously, I'm sure the names have been changed to protect the innocent, but some of these may be real people that you've known through the years, or maybe you make a one character that kind of pulls from multiple different people that you know.
I think everything, all the characters are conglomerates of people I've known. Like in Cliff Diver, which is the first Detective Emilia Cruz series, she is put in charge of the investigation into her lieutenant's death, and she knows he was a terribly dirty cop. And she doesn't want to be in charge either, but she's stuck with it. The senior detective thinks he should have been the one to investigate, but he turns out to be her prime suspect. And at one point, he says to her, "I'm going to make your life so miserable until you quit." And she says, "Tell me something I don't know." And that was an exchange I had once with a colleague, a very fraught situation. But he said, "I've never worked with a woman before, and I'm not about to start now. So I'm going to make life miserable until you quit." And I said, "Oh, big surprise." Ironically, 6 months later, his wife got a job teaching at a college far away, and he quit to follow her. So,
that was the one woman he probably listened to, right?
Yeah, and laugh about it later. So.
That's funny. I got a few comments here. Gail Moore, enjoying the conversation. Thank you.
Hi, Gail. That. Thank you.
Yeah. Maddie's one of my readers. She likes my Lethal Blues. DJ McCool, he's an author. He's been, the list comes on every now and then. He likes the book covers.
Well, the Detective Emilia Cruz covers are by Matt Chase, who right now is working on the cover for book number 9, which is called Barracuda Bay. And we were just trading emails today about the design, which we're going to go with greens and blues and a scary fish. I think my favorite cover of all of those is Pacific Reaper. And I think that might be Matt's favorite too.
Pacific Reaper. Yeah, you got the Reaper.
The Reaper scythe, which extends into both my name and the title. And I really like the way that worked. Yeah.
So you've had 9 books in that. You have a 9th book coming out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that?
Yep.
So you imagining this series is going to continue, that you're going to continue to write more series?
Yeah.
Because the other series you said was over, right? You've done 4 and that was completed.
The Galliano Club, I always was just going to do 3, and then I wrote a prequel, which worked out really well. So that's done. The series arc, it closed. Detective Emilia Cruz, I keep telling various people, I was done at 6. That's enough. I'm maybe 10, maybe 12. I don't know. And then I will come up with, I'll see something in the news, and that makes me think, I could do this and this and this and put all these pieces together. Oh, that would be a great book. So I do have a running list of plots. So I don't know. I'm not a fast writer. So and those are complex stories.
Right.
So it does take me a while to churn one out. And I've got some other ideas, things I'd like to do. I'd love to do a series set here in Tennessee. So I don't know. I can't really answer that. How about you? Now you're wrapping up Divine Devils,
Yeah,
but
that was the
Jarvis
last one.
Man is
He's still
indefinite.
going. Yeah, he's still going, and I actually retired him after the eighth book and started the Divine Devils series, and then um, I wanted to do that. I wanted to do a little harder. You know, my private eye. He's a private eye, and he's
Mhm.
kind of the snarky private eye. I love Robert B. Parker and Spencer, and I mean, I've always enjoyed the classic private eyes.
Mhm.
I wish I could be the writer that Robert B. Parker is, which God
Mhm.
rest his soul. But I would. I retired him. He was badly injured and retired. And he opened a bar and all that. And then I went to the Divine Devils, and I go. And then COVID hit, and a lot of bar owners struggled. You know, a lot of bars were closed, and they were open and closed again, and you could only allow half the people in there and stuff. Being a bar owner, so he was kind of forced to go back to private eyeing. He'd kind of given it up, and that's where Lethal Blues came in. And I brought it full circle because the main character, his client in that was his very first client in the very first short story, who's now grown up. He was a teenager then. He's now grown up. He's a professional football player. And it kind of goes full circle that way. And that was the one person that would bring him out and say, okay, yes, I'll take on a more dangerous case because of you, because I have a
Mhm.
history with you. Because he really didn't want to do, he didn't mind the cheating wives and stuff, but getting into those really bad gangsters and everything was kind of tough. So yeah, I've done two more, and I have a third, and actually the third one's going to take place in Nashville. So you were talking about Tennessee. I haven't started it yet. I actually have sort of started it, and I'm going to do that. But I have a third series that I've begun, and I actually put that in for the Claymore Award. You know, you're not supposed to. It's supposed to be anonymous, so
Okay.
nobody knows. So I won't say any titles, but I put that in for the Claymore Award. So we'll see. The Divine Devils I put in for the Claymore Award years ago, and it wasn't selected. And then I won the next year the
Yeah.
Silver Falchion Award, but I got some nice feedback from it, which helped. And I completed the book, and it was like, oh yeah. So, but yes, those stories are always there, and there's always something, and yeah, there's always a new idea that's cropped up, and so it's that's good. So do you have any other? You said you have some other ideas of maybe some other things, other book series that maybe you're thinking about. You said Tennessee. Was that going to be in the mystery genre as well, or was that going to be something else?
No, still mystery. I wanted to do a historical fiction. Of course, I'm mining my own family again. This is my father's side of the family.
Do you have to pay him royalties?
No, um, my my paternal grandfather, who was mayor of Shenandoah, Virginia, um, when I met him as a tyke, and he had a 10-gallon hat and wore a six-shooter on his belt and walked the streets of Shenandoah and made sure everything was all right with his town. But he had worked for the railroad before then. But notably, he had a very long affair with another woman and eventually married her. And she was the person who I identified as my grandmother, not the actual
Right.
grandmother who had passed away. So I they really had an interesting story, a very intriguing story, the two of them. And so I wanted to kind of use that as inspiration, do something, but uh, transpose Shenandoah, Virginia into a fictional Middle Tennessee town in the 60s. So,
Yeah.
and then, that comes into where was Tennessee and civil rights, and a couple other interesting things. I mean, Tennessee still is very agricultural, very rural outside of its three big cities. Um, and you get into some of these little towns, like Shenandoah was when I was a little kid. Um, and you've got some grist for an interesting um, tale. So I've sketched out 3 in that series, but I'm not committed yet.
Yeah.
Emilia Cruz still has my audience's heart, I think. So the pivot from police procedural to historical fiction with the Galliano Club, it was like I had to build a whole new audience.
Sure. Absolutely.
The audience didn't snap it up the way they would have, say, another Detective Emilia Cruz. So now I feel like I'm just getting back into that series with Barracuda Bay, which I don't have a release date for yet, but end of summer, beginning of fall. So I need to keep on with that, I think, for a few more books. I don't know.
Well,
Tomorrow it'll be a different answer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you still enjoy writing the character, like I've had some people that were upset with me because I ended the Divine Devils series, and they're like, and I felt like it's 4 books. I thought it was going to be 3, 4, then maybe 5. I was worried the 4th one might be too long, and it actually was the shortest book of all of them, the ending. But I felt like it was time to end it. I'd done what I could with the characters. Now I do have some bleed over between my 2 series. I do have some characters that cross over into my 2 series. So I've had some people go, "Ooh, you brought that character back here," and stuff. And I might take some of the Divine Devils. Hunter Divine he had a team, and I might write some books about them. And I've even thought about prequels and the man who is kind of their leader of the group, Amari Sarr, he's in a wheelchair and how he ended up in the wheelchair. Those type of stories are still there that might do. But if the character you still enjoy writing the character and you still have fans that want character, I mean, you don't want to just do it just to do it. You want to make sure it's a good story and you're not repeating yourself and stuff. So as long as you love it.
Yeah, there's still a lot I can do with this character, with this cast. So we'll see.
Does she ever get out of Mexico?
She was
Acapulco, you said, but
yeah, she's in Acapulco. She was in Mexico City for one book, 43 Missing, and in Barracuda Bay, she actually does travel for a time to Washington, D.C. So
get those different areas for her to go to and different people to encounter. Yeah.
But I do find that the feedback is that the readers really embrace the details about Acapulco, the water, the beach, the Paso Doble bar where her boyfriend and he's the manager of the hotel, and that's the bar in the hotel. One thing that I've always admired, Louise Penny, she writes the Armand Gamache series. He's the head of homicide in Quebec. That her fans are so dedicated to the notion of the cast of characters coming together in the bistro in this little village where they all live. And it's amazing how many reviewers will mention, "Oh, I wish I was at Olivier's Bistro having cocoa and croissants." And so I thought, I could really do something the same with the bar in the hotel where she lives, and kind of build a space for readers to feel like they're there too. They're there. The ocean is lapping. It's the walls are open to the water. It's night. Steel drum playing. Waiter comes by with a pitcher of mojitos or margaritas. Really try and bring the audience, the readership, into that space and have them enjoy that too. And then, of course, there'll be crime and mayhem. But, for a little while, they got a mojito.
Well, Acapulco is pretty much a touristy area, right? I mean, a lot of people travel there for vacations and stuff. So you're going to have a lot of different people coming and going as well as the main characters.
Yeah, and occasionally, they get bumped off.
Yeah, that's right.
Advanced
End your vacation on a bad note, right?
But unfortunately, because the drug flow goes through Acapulco, and the precursors are coming in, and gangs are fighting over territory, it's also become the most violent city in Mexico, unfortunately. It's like the top 10 in the hemisphere.
Is it even worse than like Ciudad Juarez? Juarez used to be where the big drug cartels used to be. The murder rate there was horrible. I don't know if it's gotten better.
Yeah, I think within the last 2-3 years, Acapulco is getting worse. At one point, it might have been the number one in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. San Salvador was up there. Tegucigalpa in Honduras is up there. But yeah, unfortunately. And of course, Mexico's just had elections, and they elected a female president, Claudia Sheinbaum, who doesn't sound Mexican at all, but
No.
she was the mayor of Mexico City. And it was the most violent election cycle ever there. So,
yeah.
Unfortunately, I have plenty of news to draw upon when it comes to crafting plots for that series.
Yeah. So the Emilia Cruz, I saw on your website, it was optioned for a possible TV show, movies. How's that going? I know. I talk about that at Killer Nashville. How that can be such a long, drawn out process.
I've actually sold the film rights to that series 3 times.
As long as they keep paying you, right? I mean, at least you get some money out of it. Right?
Me, yes. The first time it was a screenwriter who had written for Xena Warrior Princess, and she was determined to write a screenplay and sell it. Then NBC Universal bought her out as a vehicle for Jennifer Lopez. Jennifer Lopez, after 2 years, decided to do whatever cop show she did in World of Dance. So that took care of that. And then the last was Sofia Vergara's company, Latin World Entertainment. And we had a shop agreement for that. And then the pandemic hit, the shop agreement expired.
Yeah.
So in each case, I did not do anything. They all came to me. And what started the ball rolling was that screenwriter who said, I found your website. And because there was so much information on the website, I could really see how this would work. And then it was her manager who connected with NBC Universal. The Latin World Entertainment came totally out of the blue, once again, because of the website. Wow. So I'm not sure what's going to happen next. I get somebody pinging me about every 3 months. We'd like to explore this. So
some of them are scams. You got to be careful about who contact. I get people contact me, and
isn't it amazing?
Oh,
it is. Yeah, there's a lot of scammers, and I've gotten so suspicious.
Being crime writers, we're already suspicious, aren't we? I mean, everybody's a criminal in our eyes, right? So,
well, yes.
Mostly.
I'm not sure if you're on LinkedIn, but
yeah,
the preferred, I don't know how to say it, but the accounts that hit mine and looking at my profile are almost all Chinese.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that's.
I get a lot of Chinese. I get a lot of from India too.
Well, the Chinese are looking at anybody with the CIA. I would assume.
Yes.
Just my assumption. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's good. So do you have an agent? Usually they go through agents and stuff like that. Do you?
I did all my contracts with an intellectual property rights attorney. Am I at the point where I probably need to get a secondary rights agent? I've been working with an author coach. Let me put in a plug for Sharon Woodhouse, who's in Chicago right now. That woman knows how to sell books and has lots of ingenious ideas. I've been enjoying working with her. And so maybe it's time for to get a secondary rights coach or a secondary rights agent. I have a contract for audiobooks, so I can't sell all that, but there or a different distribution. So there's things that are out there that I haven't explored yet, but I could.
So are you indie or are you traditional?
I am indie.
Or in between?
I am between, I guess you could say. I am between. And, you know, it's interesting. When I first started publishing, and I would say, you know, I wrote this book, people will say, well, who's your publisher? And I always wondered, like, who cares? Yeah. I mean, if it was Simon and Schuster or Random House, does anybody really care? I do want, you know, it just seems like that's, why would you ask that question? How about, what's the book about?
Right.
You know?
You only buy books from big name publishers? Is that it? Yeah.
Yeah. So
well, some people still have that negative connotation about indie authors, and there are still some bad indie books out there, but it's much better than it used to be. And I think I think the indies have really upped their game and are
I think
very competitive
as a business. Yes. Yeah. Actually, at my son's wedding, I was seated next to a gentleman who's an accountant from Los Angeles. And he said, oh, I hear you write books. And I said, yes. And he said, are you traditionally published or are you independently published? And I said, for most of my stuff, I am independently published. And he goes, oh, that's brilliant. Indie authors make so much more money. I was like, but yeah, that was probably the first person who looked at this from the economic point of view, right, and was like, oh my gosh, you know, this is a brilliant construct if you do it properly. Right. So I've been doing this for 12 years. I think I'm doing it properly. So
well, good. Maybe I need to get you to coach me more.
Oh, Dr. Sharon, she's super.
Now, I may have to reach out and get her name from you. And
what was what was the first year you published?
2016, I think, was the first short story I put out independently. Yeah. So it's been a while.
Been a while.
I mean, I've been doing it, you know, and I mean, I have my fans, you know. As with everything, I wish I sold more than I did. You know, I do pretty good, but I'm one of those. It took me a long time. You know, going to Killer Nashville was a big deal for me because I am not good with crowds of people. I'm good one-on-one. I can talk really well, 2 or 3 people, yeah, but people everywhere and approaching people, that's never been my strong suit. My wife has always gone with me. Last year, my daughter went with me. My wife always has gone with me because she can just walk up to anybody and talk to them. That's just the way she is. And I'm never been like that. I've gotten better at it. You know, I get people that approach me. I probably got more. The first year I went, I got more people coming up to me about my tattoo because I got my tattoo that year of the Divine Devils on my arm. And I actually had a guy who was doing a presentation on marketing. He says, I want you to come to my marketing event and stand up there and show people, these are the things you got to do, you know. So I had more people about that than anything else that came up to me. And then, you know, it's gotten a little better through the years. This will be my 4th year, but it's those type of events. And I'm going to go, are you going to go to BoucherCon this year? It's going to be in Nashville the week after.
I am. I have not been to BoucherCon before. I too do not like huge
And
crowd.
that one's really big. I mean, compared to
Yeah.
Killer Nashville, I think there's like 3 or 4 times the number of authors at that.
Yes. Killer Nashville, the first time I went, I was feeling very much fish out of water. You know, I had just retired. I just did not know people. But one person I had met online was Mike Ferrisy.
Yeah.
And he was the first person. It was like, oh, I think that's him. It looks like his picture. And he was just, you know, the gentleman that he is. And
there's a picture of Mike.
There's Mike on the left of your screen and Bruce Robert Coffin on the right. And me looking much shorter than I really am.
Well, Bruce is really tall.
Yeah, Bruce is really tall.
He's a big time. Mike's not short, but yeah,
Yeah.
Bruce is, I don't know, he's 6'4", 6'5", maybe somewhere in there. He's pretty tall.
So, but yeah, Killer Nashville has opened a lot of doors for me, though. You know, you meet people like we're doing now. You trade blurbs and you host each other on blogs and podcasts, etc., and you know, try and boost them up on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. And that's a nice feeling. Like Killer Nashville really is a very community focused event, and you see the same people year after year. It's not like they're boring or anything, but you feel like it's a gathering of friends. So.
Yeah, and I had no plan to go the first year I went, but I got nominated, and Clay Stafford, who runs the event, he's a great guy. Clay's one of those guys you can walk up to, talk to him all day. He's so busy. I always hate to take so much time because he's always in demand. I know one of the years with COVID, his whole family was running the event because everybody was sick. He didn't have any choice. But he's a great guy. But he encouraged me, says, I really think you should come, and I really think you should come. And you really, and when my wife and I had an anniversary weekend planned. So I said, okay. So my wife said, okay, we'll change the plans and we'll go. And I ended up winning. And even in my acceptance speech, I even said that. I says, I wonder, did you have a hint I was going to win? That's why you kept telling me to come. Because obviously it's nice. You know, the winners, I mean, there are times when you announce a winner and they can't make it for whatever reason and stuff. But, you know, it's really nice to get the people up there and you get a chance to get in front of everyone, make a speech like you got to do last year, which is a little nerve wracking, but especially for us who aren't as good with everyone out there and stuff. So I always try to crack a few jokes if I can. So I try to make it a little bit humorous, but those are good things for us, somewhat introverts, to get out in front of people.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm definitely on the introvert scale. And Killer Nashville has become comfortable finally.
Yeah, we'll see how BoucherCon. We're actually going to stay for both 2 weeks. We have a motorhome. We're going to drive out and live out there for 2 weeks. So it'll be interesting, BoucherCon, because it's out there at the Gaylord, which is like its own city. I think
it is. Huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
It's very big. I'm not sure I'll go for 4 days.
Yeah.
I just might be overload, but I just, you know, it's close enough that I can drive and just check it out. What to expect.
Yeah, parking is insanely expensive too. So.
Oh, really?
I've heard like $25. Although there's a mall nearby you can park in. Maybe they'll have shuttles. And I know they were doing the little 2-wheel. You could rent the Segways or whatever to ride around, because it's a lot of walking from what I've heard. So we'll see how it goes. I'm going to be in the author discovery zone selling my books. I've signed up for that. I haven't heard all about that yet. Instead of putting in the bookstore, since I'm new to the event, you can be in the discovery zone, so I can sell my own books. So we'll see how that goes. I can get in front of a few people, and so, but yeah, with the sheer number of people, it's going to be interesting walking around. But I'll definitely be looking for familiar faces like yours and mine.
I didn't hear about the author discovery zone.
Yeah, they sent an email about it. I can forward that to you if I still have it here, if it's not too late. But
Oh, if you have it, yeah.
it's like on Friday, and it's like for 3 or 4, and you have to take care of your own sales, and you bring
Yeah.
your own books. And they haven't told me yet how big a table I'll have, but since we're driving the motorhome, I can bring books, and I always put stuff in the bookstore for Killer Nashville, and I don't generally sell a lot of books. I think I've sold 2 or 3 each year, which
Yeah.
they're just there. People come up and they look at them. I think Killer Nashville is more authors. You
Hmm.
do get some people that are aspiring authors that come to the event and want to learn, and they'll sometimes will buy your books. I've sat down and talked to people and interact with them, and they'll come and buy a book just because I spent time talking to
Hmm.
them, which is nice. So,
Well, this year I am doing a Thursday master class at Killer Nashville with Lisa Wysocki and Ashley Hagen on presenting yourself as a professional author. So those who are new to Killer Nashville, haven't been at these types of events, are just getting started in their author career and want to basically know how to maximize the experience and how to present themselves going forward out of this. Um, that's what we're for. That's going to be, I think, a big help to a lot of new authors.
yeah, that's great. It looked like was it a 3-hour class?
It's a 3-hour
It's a
class, which
long
is,
class.
you got to give them a break.
I would
You know,
hope so.
everybody gets a break after an hour and a half. So yes, we're got to have some exercises to get people out of their seats and
Yeah,
do
yeah.
some role playing and practice their elevator speech and things like that. So we're putting that all together.
Yeah, getting out of the comfort zone. I actually got to moderate a panel last year, which the first time in play encouraged me to do that too. And I said, okay, I didn't really know what exactly to do, but I did it. And everybody said I did a good job. So I volunteered to maybe do one this year. They haven't announced yet.
Yeah.
Panel. I always enjoy being on panels too with other authors, and every moderator handles it differently. I just kind of threw questions out and let people answer the questions, and I was kind of in the background mostly. I kind of gave my feedback, but I kind of let the authors do that. But it was fun. Again, getting out of your comfort zone.
Yep. Yep. No, I like to moderate and make sure that not one person hogs the.
That's
the
always a problem
discussion.
sometimes. Yeah.
It can be a problem. Yes. And Killer Nashville is definitely a craft, learn the craft kind of place. It isn't hawk your wares kind of thing.
Right.
Which I guess BoucherCon is more of a sales situation.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and of course you have Thriller Fest, which is in New York, and that's usually run by the big publishing houses. So that's usually the really, really big authors. So I have no desire to go to New York. I mean, you obviously have family there, but that's way too big a city for me. Talk about being overrun with people. I definitely would not.
No, Killer Nashville's the right size.
Yes.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
When you created your Jarvis Man series, how did you come up with that name?
Good question. And I actually make jokes about it. So, because a lot of people say, well, he's like what are you, a butler or what? The name Jarvis, Jeeves, Jarvis, is kind of the English. So it was his like a grandfather, and his parents named him after his grandfather. But I just wanted something unique. And then man sounds good, man, tough, he's a man, but with 2 N's. Some people, make jokes about it. You're the butler of private eyes and stuff. But I just thought it was a kind of a standout name that kind of worked. And I actually wrote the first short story back in the 80s, I think it was. Probably it was an early word processor. And got married, had a kid, and put it on, and I had it put aside. I never published or anything. And I actually had written 3 novels on a manual typewriter even before that with totally different characters, which I've never revisited. But and then I came back to it and I go, the missing case of the missing bubblegum card, which people who go, why did you call it bubblegum card? Aren't they just baseball cards? And I was like, well, when I grew up, we called them bubblegum cards. That's
Yeah.
the way I knew
Because
them.
they came in bazooka bubblegum.
They came with that horrible piece of gum. That stuff was terrible. It was hard as a rock. And I mean, you had to chew it really hard to get it. And stuff. So I don't even know if they give bubble gum anymore with baseball cards. Probably not. But yeah, I wrote that, and then everyone said, well, he would make a good series. And I actually had already had an idea started for the second book. And but I've always liked Private Eyes. Robert B. Parker, obviously the Philip Marlowes of the world. I mean, all those great classic Private Eyes I always have enjoyed. And the snarky attitude. My Private Eye's got a sense of humor, and everyone asks, is Jarvis me? Because I write it from first person, the classic Private Eye. And sense of humor is definitely me. I've definitely had a snarky attitude all my life. But I tell everyone I'm not nearly as tough as he was. And I certainly wasn't the ladies' man that he was, and which my wife would attest to. I always make that fun. But like Emilia, is that you?
No.
In any way whatsoever? Do you draw anything at all? Maybe her size. You said she's not very tall.
Yeah, she's probably even shorter than I am.
Yeah.
I'm 5'5", so she's probably about 5'3".
Oh yeah, really? Yeah. Well, that's considered average height for women.
Yeah, but I think the one thing that Emilia and I have in common is probably a very analytic bent of being able to see patterns. Other than that, I do yoga. She's into kickboxing. Well, I guess we're both in love with gringo men. I married. But other than that, I think she is much more authentically Mexican. Yeah.
Because your background is family is Italian, right?
My family is Italian, and there are definitely commonalities. And when we were living in Mexico, a lot felt very natural and very comfortable. Just the sense of the family and meals and cooking, and the sort of the season of the Catholic Church directing a lot of your days off or your holidays and your gatherings. I grew up Italian Catholic, so for that reason, it was easier for me to kind of enjoy the culture and be part of that culture than it was for a lot of my friends who just didn't have the same starting point when it came to understanding those cultural kind of parts of life there. So
yeah. So you have a new release, you said, coming maybe late summer.
Yeah, maybe late summer, early fall. I was aiming for an August release, but I got invited to submit a chapter to a thriller being written by more than a dozen retired CIA officers, with each person writing a different chapter. So I just finished chapter 2 and turned it into the editor. It met with applause, so I feel good about that. I'll give myself that pat on the back. But that meant that I had to set the Detective Emilia Cruz draft aside. And so now I've got to kind of get my head back in that game. It's very hard. I don't know if you find this, you're sort of like steeped in one character, one setting for a while, and then you have to abruptly shift. And then it takes me a while to remember where I was in the continuity of that first book. So that's where I am now. I've kind of got about 5 scenes to go, and then a lot of editing to make it sing.
Yeah, I did that a little bit with the Divine Retribution. I had to, that series got a little intense, so I had to, okay, put it aside, and then I brought Jarvis back because he's, a little more of the snarky private eye. Well, it's still fairly intense. Dealing with the fentanyl was the first one, but still, it was one of those, like, I had to kind of sit it aside and do something else. Did you find it challenging to write a check? Because this is obviously somebody else's idea, I'm assuming, and you're having to extend, the second chapter on what that first chapter was written about.
Well, I was glad that they asked me to write a chapter towards the beginning, because then I could introduce the key characters.
Right.
And I introduced a Russian special ops guy, a female CIA officer, and a Marine Corps colonel. And they all, I think, have legs when it comes to characters you can do something with. Because part of the challenge of this project was I can introduce these characters, I can introduce these scenes, I can have action 1, 2, 3, 4 happen. But early in a book, you have to plant the seeds of something that's going to happen later.
Right.
So not knowing the skill level or who's going to be taking up these characters, I had to plant some seeds. Well, they could do this with these characters. They could do that, so you had to introduce characters who are in motion at that time. And so hopefully somebody can, okay, I read this and this sticks out. I can do something with that. So I had to plant the seeds for somebody else in that chapter.
So it's going to be a 12-chapter book then, I'm guessing, huh?
I think it's going to be 14.
Yeah,
that's
14.
The latest is 14.
With 14 different authors writing each of the 14 chapters.
Yes.
Interesting.
Although it seems like, 14 chapters, I think I've got 40 at least going on in my latest Detective Emilia Cruz. They tend to be about 80,000 words. So this is going to be a much shorter book.
Well, yeah, unless they're really, really long chapters. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not sure how that's going to work out. So we'll see.
Yeah. Are you going to get to see the next person's chapter? Well, have they already written the third chapter after what you wrote in the second chapter?
No, it just went to him today.
Yeah. Oh, okay. But you'll get to see it, I'm assuming, eventually when they finish it.
I hope so.
Deadlines, huh?
Deadline. Well, I can't say too much about this one because it has to go through the CIA's publication review process.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yes.
So,
realistic. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, we've gone about an hour and 20 minutes here. Do you have anything else? So I'm looking at my questions here. I think I've covered most everything. We talked about your new books, a lot of where your ideas have come from, awards you won. Obviously, you won the Silver Falchion Award last year, which was always a big deal, historical fiction. And you hopefully will be up for some awards this year. You've been nominated in the past, right? I've seen your name before nominated, right?
Oh, in 2019, let's see, I won the Silver Falchion for short story in 2019.
So you won twice.
In, I think it was 2020 and 2021, 2 different Detective Emilia Cruz were finalists in the Best Investigator.
Right.
And my first book, The Hidden Light of Mexico City, was longlisted for the 2020 Millennium Book Award, which I'm very proud of that.
Oh, yeah.
That book, I still think that would be a great movie, but so.
Any movie producers out there, give her a call. She'll take your call.
No
scammers. No scammers.
Yeah, no scammers, please.
Leave us alone, right? So I always ask this question because it's the title of the show, and I almost forgot to do that. What do you do to bring life to your characters? I mean, what do you look for when you're creating those characters that really stand out from the page?
I look for something unique about each one. I make each one of them want something. And it usually is something that my main character would not want them to want. I make a lot of them liars, some good liars, some not. I take names from a list of folks who owe money to Latin American banks. I have several lists from newspapers, which publish the names of deadbeat loan people who have taken loans. And that's a lot of where I get my character names from those lists.
Wow.
Try and mix them up so that I'm not really using the first and last name of one person.
Right.
And I try and have an image in my head of what this person looks like. And sometimes I will cull newspapers or, Wikipedia, whatever, and cut out a picture. And I know that's what my villain looks like. I know that's what the mayor looks like. In my head, Emilia looks like the actress Eva Mendes. And
Sure.
the mayor of Acapulco, who is sometimes her friend, sometimes her enemy, looks like Selma Hayek. So those stay in my head as I'm writing. So that's, and I do a lot of dialogue, and I always read that out loud to myself. Emilia's boss is a former heavyweight boxer. He was her partner. Now her boss, the one who never wanted to work with a woman. And the dialogue between the two of them is a lot of argument. And it's probably the most fun to write between the two of them, because underneath they're going to help each other, but on the surface. So it's kind of like those dialogues between Spencer and Hawk.
Yes.
Where they're, it on the surface, there's animosity, but there's genuine feeling and goodwill underneath. So that's pretty much the way those are.
Well, I mean, in our stories, we got to have conflict, right? And whether it's conflict with someone that you're working with or someone you're working against,
Mm-hmm.
there's always that conflict that makes the story interesting.
Well, I read someplace, if you are bored writing this, your reader will also be bored. And so I'm really always trying to entertain myself, I guess.
Well, I know when I go back, sometimes you'll write a story and you go, is this really coming out good? And I'll go back and start reading and I go, actually, this is much better than I thought it was. Because it's such a long process.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going through it. And I'm very much a streak writer, so I might not write for a month or more, and then boom, I can throw 50,000 words out really quickly. So I just get on a roll. But sometimes I'll stop and I go, gee, does this make sense? Is this is this really good or exciting or not? And I'll go back and read it and go, wow. And I've been listening this week to an audiobook for Fallen Star, my second Divine Devils, which is being made, and I haven't read that book in a while, and I'm listening to it and I'm chuckling at some of the parts in it, and I'm going, oh yeah, this really was a good story, because I haven't heard it in a long time, and the narrator's doing a good job. And
hey, that's exactly the response you want when you go back and you look at the old stuff and you're like, hey, this is pretty good.
Yeah. That's where we're patting ourselves on the back again, right?
Yeah.
Wow. We sometimes know what we're doing, right? So.
Sometimes.
Okay, so we know you're going to Killer Nashville, BoucherCon. I'll see you there. Any other events coming up for the rest of the year for you?
Not right now. Those are what I've got going right now. But it seems like every month something else pops up on the calendar. But right now it's Killer Nashville, BoucherCon, And you can always find me on my twice a month newsletter, where I always publish my top secrets for that week, an excerpt of what I'm writing now, and a review of a book that I recommend as you're waiting for the next Detective Emilia Cruz, like Lethal Blues.
Nice. Yep. So there's her website right there. And I think you sent me one about links.
That's right. The links will take you right to sign up for the newsletter.
Yeah, you have a really nice website. I got to upgrade my website. My website's definitely needs a big one. It's one of those, am I going to do it myself or am I going to pay somebody? I think eventually I'm going to have to pay somebody, but I need to upgrade. I really like your website. It's really, really good. You maintain it yourself?
I do.
That's always a challenge. I go back and I go, crap, I forgot to update this. It's like I got a new book out and I might say coming soon and it's been out for a month. And I go, oh, wow, I got to change that.
And really, I credit that with a lot of opportunities coming to me because they found the website and really liked the website. It looked professional. So I will probably keep putting effort into it.
Yeah, I can see why it stands out. So,
well, thank you very much.
Well, and I thank you for being on. We've gone almost an hour and a half. I think we still got a few people on from what I can see, and got a few likes here and there. So, and I will send you the link to the recording. I can also send you the actual recording if you want to put it on your website. I have all that stuff, and it'll show up on your Facebook page.
Oh, fabulous.
If it all worked.
If it all worked.
I haven't had too many problems, but as long as it's a Facebook page, you can't do it to groups anymore. That one's a mess because Facebook is constantly restricting things these days and changing things up. So that's made it a little bit harder. But yes, thank you. I will see you in Nashville in August, and I'll probably be looking for you at
Please do
as well. It's like looking for familiar faces. I don't think Mike was going, but from what he told me, if I remember right, he's not going to go, and because he lives half his time he lives in Ireland, and half his time
I'm sure he's going. Oh well, I hope he's going to Killer Nashville.
He's going to Killer Nashville, but I don't think he was going to BoucherCon. Yeah, he will. He loves Killer Nashville, but I don't think he was going to stay for BoucherCon as well. But I'm sure there'll be some others that are going to both. There's a lot of authors in that area that go to that event, so I'm sure they'll go to it.
We'll do our best to blunder through it, but
yeah. And I'll send you that link about the Discovery Zone. I'll find that and I'll email you that. But thank you again. I enjoyed talking with you. It's the most we've ever had a chance to talk, and hopefully we'll get to talk some more at Killer Nashville. And I will say goodbye to you, and I'll put you backstage, and I'll close out the thing. And if we want, we can talk a little bit afterwards and stuff. But
all right.
Thanks again, Carmen.
Thank you, Randy. Bye.
Yep. All right. Thanks, everyone, for being on. We went a little long today, but we were having a lot of fun talking. One thing I want to do, obviously, check out Carmen's books, check out my books. And the other thing I wanted to bring up earlier before I started, but I found, reviews. We're always looking for more reviews. So every author, especially independent authors, struggle for reviews. The big companies, they can get 10,000 reviews, it seems like, and the book's only been out a month. And I just recently got my 1,000th review from Goodreads, which was, I think is pretty darn good, but that is a drop in the bucket compared to the big boys. So if you read a book and you love it, leave a review. Even if you only like it, leave a review. I don't even mind sometimes the bad reviews if they are constructive and all that. So, and Gail Moore said, loved it. So glad you enjoyed it, Gail. But thanks, everyone. And in 2 weeks, I am going to have Nancy S. Thompson on, who's got a new book out, another thriller author. I'm going to interview in a couple of weeks. So I hope everyone will tune in then, and I'll send out notices about that. But good night, everyone. Stay safe.